It's Dan from the My James Rock Show, and well, gentlemen, this recognisable doesn't need much of an introduction, but it's Tommy Vext from Bad Wolves.
What's going on? How are you?
I'm really good. I've been looking forward to meeting you for a while.
Yeah, right on, man.
Well,
it's good to see you. I like this jacket.
Thank you.
Did you have that custom made?
Yeah.
I like the paint. Yeah, it looks cool. It's very well stressed.
Thank you. I'll set you up with the person that did it afterwards.
Yeah, let me know.
I think that might make his day.
Might get a free code now. We can pay for it. It's cool.
But no, I was going to say, after the last couple of years that Bad Wolves have had, and yourself as well, I mean, I'm just happy to be in the same room as you and being able to talk to you, because I remember you from Divine Heresy days and stuff like that.
The old days.
The old days.
Yeah.
And then you guys had, quite an explosion, which wasn't strictly planned. I wanted to pass on as somebody from the industry. I thought you guys handled what happened with the whole zombie thing incredibly respectfully.
Oh yeah, thanks, man. That period was such an emotional roller coaster. I think I really didn't realize what had happened till almost a year later.
Yeah.
And I was, in the retrospect of, what all the things that happened and processing and, what the community. I mean, we asked our community to help us do something right.
Yeah.
In a tragic situation, and it really, it showed how strong of a voice that rock and metal still exists.
Oh yes.
And people still want to hear guitar and they want to hear live drums and it was like, it was a movement almost. And once again, I think, Dolores and the Cranberries, what they initially did in 1994, they wound up doing again through us, and and it brings people together. Whenever you talk about something real and wherever you write something that emotionally connects with people in an honest way, you help change the world, and that's what they did, and we were very honored to carry the torch and pay our respects.
Well, I thought it was a testament to what Bad Wolves were and like the ethos you guys had, that you sort of launched the cover, the reasons why, obviously the dedication of the Prophets, but then you just let it drop as well. It wasn't something that you guys as a band sort of held up for the first couple of years of being on that album. I thought that was an incredibly respectful thing to do, is rather than just making it about the one track, you're like, no, that's about the Cranberries. Bad Wolves is about everything else. And I thought it was honestly just brilliant. I wanted to start that way because there's something I've been thinking since it happened. Press is all I do. So talking about this sort of stuff is what excites me. And I just, like I say, I thought you guys handled it incredibly well.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Also, as one of those things is, shall we say, Googling just to see what I didn't know about you before the interview.
Okay.
You've had quite an epic life, and I love watching your interviews with other people. You're quite an inspirational person as well. Whether
some people say that,
I was going to say, whether you feel that.
I don't feel like that. No, I just kind of tell the truth about. I just have experienced things, and I talk about them openly. So I don't know if that qualifies me to be. Some inspirational person. People say that, and that's cool, but I don't know.
Maybe if we break it down, is I think you make people maybe feel a bit more comfortable about being open, because, as you say, you're open about things.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a universal thing that I think any time that, and I think anyone can do this. That I believe in that premise. I feel like whenever we are honest with ourselves and other people about the things that we've survived or what we're going through while we're going through it, we subconsciously give other people permission to be honest with themselves too. And that kind of makes for a less burdened society and a less burdened life, because the more you hold on to these things, the more they hold you down, and we only get to live once, and we miss out on the experience of being alive because we're constantly in our minds about our issues and the past and the future and the what ifs and why did this happen, a lot of that stuff. So I just lots of therapy, and
I've done that myself.
I've done a lot of work, and I still got more to do. So
like I say, I think it's just brilliant. So we've gone with the openness because we're two guys on a show in a male-dominated industry. And we've noticed over the last few years how much sort of people like yourselves, who I think in some people's minds are like, because of the gym and tattoos and everything like that, give off a closed-off manly vibe. And then to hear you being open, I think, as you say, is it encourage people to do the same thing a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's like don't judge a book by its cover. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of misconceptions about masculinity and about I think there's more of a dialogue with men's mental health issues and kind of the way that traditionally I'm I'll be 38, and so I was raised in a way where, you know, boys don't cry, and you're not allowed to have feelings. And
I know those feels too.
Yeah, and so what you know, part of that stuff is as you get older, that stuff goes to work on your life. Those that misinformation, and so you kind of have to peel the onion back, and every layer, the more deeper you get, the more, you know, the more you're able to become more open, and the more freeing it is. And a lot of people are suffering. You know, last week we got off stage in Copenhagen, and you know, Joe Payne from Divine Heresy, they found him dead. And you know, it was just like knocked the wind out of me. I had just seen him over the summer. We were actually, he and Dino and I and Tim were throwing around the idea of doing a show.
Really?
Yeah, and I guess he had been struggling with some substances, and he didn't make it, and we're still waiting on like the final, you know, toxicology and stuff. But you know, these are the things that go on when people, you know, I've lost a lot of people, obviously being in recovery for 11 years, who relapse, and this kind of self-medication for these emotional issues that we have, or the space that we don't have to talk about, it kills people. And it's like, you know, so we use our platform to really address that and let people know, men and women or whatever gender you identify with, like, it's okay. And like, you don't have to, I think toxic shame is really, really a serious issue, because it almost prohibits people from being able to address and speak about what's going on inside of them. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. And it's not something that you're the only one. There's no terminal uniqueness when it comes to mental health or addiction or alcoholism or, you know, all that stuff, whatever addiction it is.
I was going to say about the tour itself, I think like the one that you're on at the moment is quite fitting to stuff because, you know, Five Finger have had quite a public thing with addiction, which I understand a couple of years ago you even kindly filled in to help the band out, and then pranked people, I think, a year or so later as well.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty funny.
And then, of course, Megadeth have had years of talking about it as well. I say that Dave Mustaine is one of the first people who was actually quite open. I remember interviews from the 80s where he's talking about stuff that nobody else was. Are you finding that it's sort of reflecting in the crowd response that you're getting from people? Because, you know, we're hitting new eras where it comes to, you know, people can go to gigs and party, but there doesn't have to be substances or alcohol with that. Is that something that you're finding on the tour as well? Like lots of sober hangs and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I just naturally gravitate towards, you know, where the other non-substance people are. But I also, you know, I don't have a problem with, you know, my band guys, like, sometimes they'll have a beer or two and drink wine. And some people, you know, most people can have a couple of drinks and not
put it down,
and then not hurt themselves or anybody else. And so, you know, I don't think it's like, just because I am, you know, diagnosed alcoholic, I don't think that anybody else has to change because of me, you know. And I think that having several people on a tour that's sober is good too, because, you know, things don't tend to get out of control.
And you can remember.
And everyone has a good time. And, you know, I think, you know, I think this tour is really cool. I think it's really special, you know, that Dave from Megadeth, obviously, just, you know, he just overcame cancer. And the perspective, and the perspective of that is like, I've had a near-death experience, and I was pronounced dead in 2010, and I was revived, and, you know, I can just see, there's a vibe. He just has a vibe of like gratitude to be around,
right?
You know, and then that's kind of carries out through the audience, and I've seen Ivan have that, you know, and I experienced that. And, you know, for a band for like a tour that's like all these like metal, like, you know, super testosterone filled, like badass dudes, you know, there's a lot of emotional diversity that comes with a tour like this and a live show where people are, again, like, you're allowed, like, there was a thing that I remember I said when I was interviewed when Dolores passed away, and it rings true. It's like, when an artist dies, we mourn the death of them not because we knew them, we mourn them because they helped us know ourselves. And that has been
fantastic.
The way that I have known myself is through other people's art. That's how I learned who I was.
Yeah.
That's how I learned that I wasn't alone. And I think the bands on this bill, I think we all subscribe to that same kind of lineage of integrity, and so it seems to be going over well with the crowds.
Yeah.
And yeah,
You can probably tell I do interviews of a similar style, because this is what I've done post-addiction, was sit in front of cameras and talk, fill the brain up, do things. But it's in talking to people like you, because, you know, in many ways, when not in front of a camera, I'm still just a fan at the end of the day.
Yeah, me
so
too.
Being able to talk to people that I see up on stage and doing all that sort of stuff, but saying stuff that's very real and very relatable. And, you know, as I say, I've had issues with addiction myself in times past. Fortunately, a few years past it now, so that they're more of a reference point than something I would necessarily say I'm currently struggling with, but it's what's led these interviews to be the way that they are. You probably noticed, went straight into it and didn't mean it to. It's just the stuff that comes into my head as I speak, but it helps deal with them. We
down to brass tacks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like I said, I was just looking forward to speaking with you. I would have been happy if we had talked about the album, you know, from last year, Nation. That would have been just as much fun. But
go buy it.
There's the album plug.
Yeah, right.
But no, it's like I say, it was just when Mike, the gentleman behind the camera, said that we were going to be interviewing you guys, and it was actually you as well. I was like, all right, well, I'll try and push down the starstruck moment where I get to.
Yeah. We're all people, man. That's the thing that I don't like the idea of fame. I don't like it. I think fucking being famous is the most fucking lame fucking thing. I live in LA, and like, you know, I have some friends who are legitimate like A-list celebrities, and they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They're real. Like, and they're not my friends because of that. And then there are other people who are, you know, there are just like random people who are just desperately thirsty to be famous on social media, who have no skill, no talent, nothing to say, no intellect. They're like, and it's just like this thing that it's almost like a Black Mirror episode of living, where everyone is like desperate to be famous. Like as if we're all entitled to be. And I don't even want attention. I have anxiety, you know, like I it's hard for me. Like I don't know, like I can't be someone I'm not. And I have a hard time when I come off stage and I've exhausted all this emotional energy, and then people want to come back and hang out, and like I don't drink and I don't party, and like I want to just like crawl in my bunk with my girlfriend and go to bed. You know, and like I'm very simple like that, you know. And so, you know, the thing is that a lot of people want to be somebody, but we forget that everybody already is somebody. You know,
beautiful just as you are, you know?
Yeah, and it's like everyone has an ability to make an impact. And I've watched people who are, you know, I'm someone who I was, you know, I got help getting sober by, you know, a dude that was a janitor and a car salesman, and you know what I mean? And like all work is honorable.
Yeah.
And you never know who you're helping or who you're saving, you know? And you know, it's just like, it's a... Recovery is an equalizer, because addiction and alcoholism, it doesn't give a shit how much money you have in the bank or what your religion is or what race you are or what gender or whatever. It doesn't fucking care. So you know, when you have that, you really start to understand the world's a little bit different than everyone else is trying to paint it.
And I think that's a very good point. I just really struck by the fact that, you know, addiction is a great equalizer. Yeah. Because as you say, it really doesn't balance, and you say. The thing about fame as well that really gets me is, as you say, so many people are so hungry to get past and get to the other side of it. And then every interview I've seen of somebody that chased that down is gone, but the other side is still just a human being struggling with the same things.
Yeah, it doesn't fix anything. It's like my buddy, one of my buddies, he said this quote to me, and I never forgot it. And he was like, "Fame is the only drug that makes you sick before you even get it."
I like that.
Yeah. It's just like ridiculousness to me, you know. So you know, when you know, I don't know. It's bizarre to me that people wait outside the bus to like get a picture, but if they're out there, that's where I go, you know.
You know, it probably means a lot more to them than anything else, you know.
Yeah, but it means a lot to me, because it's like I'm living on borrowed time. I'm someone who was dead, so all those moments are like I almost missed this. So these people, like, you know. they're like fans, but I'm like, they're like my friends, because I'm like, oh, I'm not alone anymore. I spent most of my life by myself, like in my head, thinking I was completely alone. And
I know that feeling.
Yeah, and that's what the thing is. That's that's what. We have like mosh pits and like everyone goes crazy and beats the shit out of each other, but we make everybody hug each other too. You know what I mean? Because it's real, like, and that's life. Sometimes you want to punch a hole in the wall, but you also need a hug at the same time. And like, where else are you gonna get that? A Bad Wolf show. That's how we do.
I think that's a lot of reasons why people go to live metal shows, is because it's somewhere to put all of that. I maintain to people that can't understand why I listen to metal. It's like, you're not angry. I'm like, because
I'm not angry because I go to the shows and I
listen to metal when I've got somewhere to put it. And I remember back when I was like 15 years old and I first heard Metallica, I was like, wow, somebody that actually is as angry as I am has not just felt these emotions but gone out and made music about it. And that's like that feeling has never gone from me. It's why I still listen to metal, why I like doing this, is because then I can do something about that feeling, and hopefully, because I'm one of these people that I've gone from being overly sharey and everybody saying that I talk too much about mental health, to suddenly people really like to hear about it, and like the fact that I can just jump in with 2 feet to talk to somebody about it.
I think that the more that we talk about this stuff, the more destigmatized it becomes. And I think maybe a decade ago, it's like you wouldn't
want to say on camera I have anxiety after a gig and I don't want to go partying, because it was.
I don't feel like that, but I don't think other people would. I don't think other people would admit to those things, because like there's been some stigma about like living with depression or anxiety or addiction or bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder or MPD, like as like some form of weakness, that as if like it's a character defect. It's like it's just a state of being, and some people are afflicted with certain things, and and then some people, there's a lot of people who don't. They feel sorry for themselves for no fucking reason.
Yep.
And like a lot of people, it's tough, because I have a lot of compassion for people who are struggling with mental health, but I also have a compassion for people who assimilate, because they want to get attention.
Yeah.
And we're in this weird time of like this addiction to attention.
And I often say to people, like, if they're dealing with somebody that's doing an attention seeker, is maybe just ask them how they are. Even if they're being really over the top about attention seeking, there is still a need there for them to have something addressed.
Well, people need a hug.
People need a hug.
Yeah, I was like,
I literally could talk to you about this probably for a lot longer, but we've got time restraints, getting smiles from behind the camera. So we'll probably wrap up there. Like I say, I wasn't expecting this one, but dude, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This honestly is part of the reason I do this, and it helps me as a person so much to be able to talk to people about this sort of stuff.
Thanks for having a platform where people can talk about this stuff.
Thank you very much.
It's important. Right on.
Brilliant.
All right, see you guys next time.
Welcome to the My James Rock Show.